Welcome back to Cheche. Today's guests are KANU Secretary General Nick Salat, ODM Chairman John Badi, and speaking for URP and the JAP formation is Nandi Senator Stephen Sang. We're talking about the Kericho and Malindi by-elections and how the IEBC handled those polls. As a result of the Kericho by-election, KANU says that the IEBC is not equipped to manage next year's general election. And so before the break, you were talking about losing faith in both the judiciary and the IEBC, which is why you've not gone to them with your complaint. But another complaint you haven't quite explained to us is this computer program that you say for every vote that your rivals got, for every vote that you got, inflated the votes of your rivals.
To explain, as was explained to us by statisticians who we employed to study how the results were being transmitted, there is a system called geometric progression formula, which at every, as explained to us by the experts, if you look at the results that were being transmitted, there was always that the JAB candidate was doubling hours, all through from start to finish. So we were wondering, how is it? And I'm asking, even here, you could host a program of, because it's all known that this formula is out there, and they took us and said it's a program which you can put in the computer and it tallies. So when we do the regression of that particular system,
so that you have a consistent
yes, doubling at all times, all through from start to finish.
Doubling whose votes?
Doubling so that the JAB candidate was double hours. Right from 7:10 when it started to be transmitted to the very end. There's always a consistency in doubling of the votes. And that was explained to us properly by statisticians who we actually employed to study how this system works.
Okay, Mr. Sang?
So would you like I count?
Just a minute.
This is a continuation of the fictitious, allegations being made by KANU. If you look at polling stations, really, and I wish we had a list of, the votes that every candidate got in each of those polling stations, where you would get our candidate getting 230 and their candidate getting 150 or 110. And of course, if you look at the voter turnout and the percentage and what the other candidates got, still tallies. I mean, so this kind of formula, the onus is on them to tell us. But I think it's really unfortunate that KANU would craft this formula and still not be able to explain to us how they fit into the votes that came out in Kericho. Our candidate, their candidate had 56. Our candidate had 106. I don't know where, where you...
Now, the question is, would you like to go, we go back to the ballot boxes and count them physically? Why are you not asking for that? If there is that arithmetical progression,
and the ballot papers are there.
And the ballot papers are still intact in the boxes.
What we've asked the IEBC, we put out this formula out there, and they have not disputed the existence of such a formula.
Where?
Yeah, just a minute, David.
They have not disputed the existence of this formula. Yes. So what they should have done instead of summoning us is to answer to all those allegations that were put forth. All they did is to summon us. And in summoning us, we have said, this is what we have tabulated and those are the results. They should have disproved it. Instead of just unilaterally saying the system was clear.
Okay, David.
I think that the less time we spend on that theoretical, hypothetical formula, the better for the country. Because as Honorable Sang has said, you can create a formula here and tabulate figures and go away with them. What is the relationship between that formula and the votes which were cast and counted for each of the candidates? KANU has not established any link. We can create any geometry and progressive formula and do that anywhere, but how does that relate to Kericho by-election? It is erroneous for him to say that IEBC has not denied. IEBC has not even responded to that because it has it's hanging in the air, it has no legs. Or, I mean, where do you even start responding to such a fictional allegation?
You see,
and then two, which is very important.
What I understand the formula to do is, it says there are more votes given, but than the ones in the box. Is that so?
If not quite. Somebody
can I just come in? I had Mutegi ask why they are not calling for the opening of the ballots. That can't happen legally, because legally, once election results are announced, it is only the court that can order for reopening and scrutiny. So whatever you do, even IEBC, if they recount, that is illegal. That's the way I understand it. But I want to address the issue that has been raised about the formula. And that is why I was saying, when it comes to the specifics about the counting of votes, relaying of the same, it would not be right for someone like Mbadi to sit here and say that there was manipulation or otherwise, because I have no evidence, I have no facts. However, what should worry IEBC is this lack of faith in electronic transmission of votes. And I want to take you to history a bit. There were 3 devices that IEBC acquired before the last general election: the biometric voter registration, the biometric voter identification device, or electronic voter identification device, and the electronic voter transmission device. These 3, only biometric voter registration device succeeded to a large extent. The 2, the voter identification and result transmission, failed in the last election. And remember, there was a formula, and that is why when Kanu talks of a formula, let us not dismiss it. It is upon IEBC to come out and tell Kenyans. By the way, it is not about Kanu, it is about all of us. IEBC needs to give us confidence going to 2017 about the electronic treatment of voters electronically. There was a formula that was in the electronic voter transmission device, which was multiplying figures for spoiled votes. And you remember when the IEBC started counting presidential votes, the spoiled votes ran into almost 1 million. Until now, they said there is a problem here. And that formula was put by a human being. Therefore, you cannot dismiss Kanu when they complain that someone could have manipulated the formula that was used to relay and transmit the Kericho senatorial by-election. What IEBC needs to do is to come forth and tell Kenyans that the true results are this one. In fact, if I was IEBC, I would not even wait. They can publish the results. 623 constituencies and not so many.
Confirm that
just publish the results and say this is the polling station. I wish I knew one of them. Say Sogoyin or whatever it is. This is the polling station. Kanu got 110, as Sang was saying. Jab got 213. The total adds up to this, and this is based on the hard Form 35A, and this tallies with the electronic voter transmission device. Then this suspicion would just end. But to dismiss that formula cannot be manipulated is overstretching imagination. It has been manipulated, it has been interfered with. The last election we noticed it, and so even the by-elections, it could have been.
It is important what Honorable Mbadi is saying. What I think it would have been helpful is if Kanu had come to IEBC and said this is it.
But it goes back to the question of faith, though, and confidence in the process.
I'll address that. Then you would look at the complaint and the claim about some formula existing, having, and it shows that this is what we suspect, even if you have no evidence. Then IEBC will give you the opportunity to, explore their system and demonstrate why you are wrong. Let me also make it clear that, first of all, results are not just transmitted in some form fictitiously. The results are taken from forms which are filled. In fact, the final declaration of results is based on physical presentation of Form 35 at the tallying center. That is a fact. I mean, but you can. So there was nothing that they were. So transmission is an act that can actually be excluded from the voting process. That's what we used to do in the past. You count the votes there, you fill the forms, and you tally them there manually. People are trying to be digital. That's why they say send them to the central place so that everybody can get. But having said that, the question that Honorable Salat raises, that we have no confidence, so we can't go there. We have no confidence in the courts, in the IEBC, so we can't go there. Very strange. they have no confidence in the same organization that called the elections, managed those elections, which they participated in. So where do you go? If you had no faith in the IEBC conducting those elections in the first place, you should not have participated. Because again, further to that, there are very clear processes for complaining when you have a grievance in an election. You write the complaint right there and give the returning officer, specifying the complaint. Is addressed or not addressed?
Even Mr. Mbandi, when he says he and the court have no faith in the Electoral Commission, why did you take Okoa there? Why did you not go to the court of public opinion like Kanu?
You see, Mutegi, the fact that we use a legal framework that is in place, I mean an institution that is in place to execute what is legally provided, does not mean we have faith. We don't have faith in IEBC. We have spoken about it. We have told them to change. They are not changing. In fact, even the way they are handling the Okoa Kenya bill is itself an indictment on their level of performance. Because the simple provision of the Constitution of 90 days has been floated, and there's no apologies. The IEBC is not even coming out to tell us, well, we know we have not lived to the expectation of Kenyans because of 1, 2, 3. They are talking about being overstretched. The Constitution did not contemplate that. But why we took Okoa Kenya bill to IEBC is because we believe in the rule of law. And that is why we went to the Supreme Court. Because we believe in the rule of law. We have issues with the decision of the Supreme Court. You can even see the integrity questions around the Supreme Court. But fundamentally, I think what should concern all of us as Kenyans, in 2007, this country almost went to the dogs because of lack of faith in the judiciary. When I listen to Nick Salat say that he has no faith in the judiciary, I get concerned. And it should concern all of us, including the president. That's an institution that is supposed to arbitrate in the cases of dispute has lost the faith of many, many Kenyans. And what is the net effect? Possible chaos. And I think that is what we should strive to avoid.
Let's come back to you, Mr. Salat. Are you overstating the case? Is this not a case of being sore losers?
We are not petitioning the election itself, but we are petitioning these institutions that are to conduct these elections going forward. Because we've noticed that just close to an election, which is about 14 months from now, if they carry themselves or conduct themselves the way they have done in Kericho, and where all of us, all parties now, as you put it earlier, it's not only Kanu which is complaining, or even Jab is complaining. Now, Code was ahead to actually point a finger that going to 2017, if there are no reforms with the way IEBC is conducting itself, this is a country that we all love, and we don't want to go back to a situation.
How do you respond to somebody like Maura, who says the problem is a high degree of vilification of the IEBC perpetually by losers? Somebody needs to guide us perhaps on how we can import IEBC personnel if we cannot trust Kenyans.
If that's to save the country, let's import. If we're not able,
there'll be a winner and a loser.
If we're not able to elicit that trust that we need from institutions that are going to conduct this election, then we better find, if we love this country, we better find somebody who can actually give us.
Okay, so then how do you respond to those people who think that you just had an unelectable candidate? Take John. Salat and Kanu should know that people look for performance but not parties. Cheriot could have won even in ODM. This is not the first time Mr. Sang has lost an election.
We're looking at the way it was conducted, and we're saying Sang met all the requirements to be our candidate, and we presented him. And it's not about that it's age, but he met the requirements that we gave.
The voter rejected.
Yes, rejected. That's why we're not petitioning. We're not petitioning the election. We're saying the conduct of IEBC here, which Makali seems to defend very much.
I've waited for evidence.
But you have said that he won the election, that there are missing, what, 100,000 votes, 100,000 votes somewhere, and that he is the rightful winner of the election.
On the formula that we applied, on the statistics that we applied to, because you cannot have an election where at every, and I agree with Sang, the election should have been polling station per polling station, but yet it was just lump sum.
How? What's lump sum?
Yeah. It was lump sum. At every point, 10,000, 20,000.
You know, that margin.
Go ahead.
I think Kanu lost an election. I know how competitive the by-election in Kericho was, and the stakes were so high. I know Nick Salat and his team are at pains to explain how they lost the election. Most likely, and my suspicion is that they ran a very well-oiled campaign, very elaborate. There must have been somebody who financed this process, and this is just an explanation to try and satisfy the person and account for the resources that they used. Otherwise, Kanu would have presented their issues to IEBC. They would have presented their issues to court. Like this formula, you only need to ask for a recount, and Badi says that can only be done through the court process. Just undertake an election petition, have the petition the court to order for a recount. You will clearly establish whether there was a formula or not. The fact that they are not interested in pursuing some of these complaints to their logical conclusion only means that they are speaking to a specific constituency other than IEBC and the courts.
And in this case, IEBC is the easy punching bag.
Absolutely.
Whatever IEBC does, whether it's this particularly constituted IEBC or a new one constituted, if this is the faith that politicians or candidates will have, that unless you win, the referee has done something crazy, we will not move this country forward. We'll always be circling around the same allegations.
But I want a quick question, Mr. Salat. If all of these things were true, but Kanu had won the election, would you still be complaining?
It is important that moving forward, our elections are conducted should satisfy all parties concerned. And here, for example, I do take IEBC to be a party to this election, whereby we need a third party, but to appear before the person I'm accusing for having
third party is the court.
The court.
But now, it's the court.
Can I just come in? You are asking whether if Kanu won, would they still have complained? Yes, we've won many elections and we have complaints. And I will give you examples. We won Homa Bay. I personally complained. We won Kajiado Central. We complained. We have just recently won Malindi. We have complaints. And what I'm saying is that IEBC, as is constituted today, has lost faith of many Kenyans. The confidence level is very low. And so how then do we go? How do we go forward? My suggestion is that we go back to the Okoa Kenya proposal, where we would accept that in a country there are no people who are neutral. Every one of us, if you give us a ballot paper, I would cast it to a particular candidate. And so we need to agree that the major or the political players need to constitute IEBC, so that each one of us has faith. And that was the IPPG, and that is why 2002 general election, the outcome was accepted.
You want an IPPG?
Something similar to IPPG, but now anchored in law, so that no one would trash it after ascending to power, that was an MOU. What we want is a legal framework that is anchored in law, probably through the constitution as we are proposing, so that we make it, the political players, let each one of us check, let us check each other. Let us have commissioners who are checking each other, because none of us would be neutral in this case. And I want to tell you why we have been complaining. Like in the case of Malindi, we have talked about voter bribery. IEBC has not explained to Kenyans whether there was voter bribery and what they have done about it. They have the powers to act. Take the case of the MP for Mwea, who Aisha Juma didn't even know, and he also equally didn't even know Aisha Juma, even though they sit in the National Assembly. It is wananchi. By the way, if you want to know how serious Kenyans are taking the electoral process, it is the people of Malindi who went and arrested that MP. That would show you, demonstrate to you how passionate people are about the outcome of election. Yeah. We don't want to leave it to Kenyans to go and arrest individuals. Yeah. We don't want to see military personnel in a constituency like we saw in Malindi. We don't want to see public officers participating actively in elections and electoral process without IEBC taking action. They should not claim they don't have power. They do. IEBC has powers. It has the capacity. It's only that they don't have the will to do it. In Homa Bay, I personally complained about violence, which was meted on us as ODM. A lot of times ODM has been accused of violence. In Homa Bay, it was the reverse. We were provoked, we were hit. I spent $500,000 to repair my car, which was smashed, and for no reason. So IEBC has the legal framework. They need to use the laws that we have provided to them to restore confidence on the people of Kenya. But the time is running out. I don't think right now any Kenyan would still wait for IEBC. So in my view, let us agree as a country to constitute IEBC, but not to destroy the institution, but to replace the commissioners. But you can only replace it through a process that is agreeable.
There's several things you're saying. Let's go step by step. You've talked about Okoa Kenya. Will KANU now be joining the Okoa Kenya movement?
We will join up with all Kenyans who are interested in safeguarding the process, the electoral process. And it's not only Okoa Kenya. I wish the other players, the other groups who have actually decided that they need to go to a referendum, we come together in a manner that we're all heading and directing to really having an acceptable IEBC to all parties concerned.
Okay. The other thing that Mr. Mbadi, you said, you've talked about the commissioners.
Yes.
And there was a conversation about the Chief Justice, comparing the judiciary to the IEBC, and the Chief Justice is leaving early in order for a successor to have time to settle in to properly adjudicate the elections. And you were making the point that you'd like to see the same from the IEBC. Can you?
That is correct, and I'm saying, but before they leave, we need to agree. How then do you put the new commission in place? That is our major concern also. But beyond that, Uduak, why I'm saying IEBC cannot convince Kenyans that they are neutral. Look at even the way they have treated the complaints from these elections. For KANU, they are even, to me, they are intimidating KANU at the moment. And for someone like Duale, no one has invited him to also come and explain why he's claiming that there were the electoral process in Malindi was manipulated. And yet he has just said exactly what KANU did say. The IEBC is quiet about Duale. They are asking KANU to come forward. If not, then they will invoke the provisions of law. You cannot apply law selectively and expect us to clap for you and insist that you are fair to everyone. So what we are telling IEBC, you have not demonstrated to Kenyans. You know, election should not just be free and fair. It should be seen to be free and fair.
It is very difficult to be in the shoes of IEBC. IEBC has asked KANU to come forth and present the evidence or its allegations, not even evidence, bring and complain formally. IEBC has refused. What KANU has done, IEBC has looked at the law and said, you guys are in violation of the code of conduct of political parties, which you have signed. That code of conduct says, first, you acknowledge IEBC as the authority to conduct that election. Two, you accept the results when they declare them. Then you can take action, go to court or whatever remedies you may have. It is invoking the same law you want them to enforce. And when now they invoke it, you say they should not go after KANU. So what should IEBC do? No, I also may just wish to add. I mean, that is just part of. But I need to correct. I need to correct that I'm not saying they should not go after KANU. I'm saying be fair to everyone. Yes. Okay. Yes. Let me just add a quick one because our time is not much. A notion that is being created is that IEBC is like a police unit that arrests people when they see them and doing that. Even Mheshimiwa Mbadi knows that IEBC doesn't have that capacity. IEBC looks at the evidence, looks at what is going on, gathers the evidence, prepares the report, which it has done and has published, of incidents in Malindi and Kericho, including Cabinet Secretary Keter, who is being, that report is there about the potential violations of the electoral law, which are being followed. But nobody wants to look at that. And when you go after one of them, they all jump and say, now you're targeting me. So what should IEBC do? This is what I don't know.
Okay,
this is
fine. Let's come back to that. We have to take a quick break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. We'd welcome your thoughts on how the IEBC can be seen to be adjudicating elections freely and fairly. Thank you.